Everyone, really so glad you can join us here for this really just launch, soft launch of the project that I've been working on for several years now, although it does seem like several lifetimes, putting together really just a collection of poems and passages for the journey, each of us, of course, on the journey home. And essentially, these passages are meant to be read in the context of practice. As you know, that is our dharma, is being on the path of practice. And so, they're meant to be guides or accompaniments or inspirations on the mat, particularly around the experience of dropping in, the experience of the direct connection to source. And so really the passages that I've put together, the poems and the verse that I'd like to share with you a few today are really from my own personal journey. Of course, how else can we speak except from our own odyssey? And mine has been, a long and circuitous one, really, as I imagine yours has as well. And so many trials, so many, ways in which I've been, caught in cul-de-sacs of attempt to try to grow and evolve, and then finding myself, through various, lost in various wildernesses, and then always coming back to the simplicity of breath and the very simple process of being in the present moment. And so I'd like to share with you passages I think that speak to my own journey through my own trials and errors, and then also, of course, that process of arriving in the very moment. So the first poem is entitled No Surprise in the Space Between. And I just love, of course, this analogy, because I do think we're always in between. I mean, it could be, of course, that we're in between seasons, or we're in between a breath, and inhale and an exhale. But we're in between some part of our life. We're in this midst of constantly becoming. So I imagine you're in the space between in your own life in some way. And so this first poem is titled In the Space Between. At long last, I've come back to myself. At long last, I've come back to myself after years of wandering down vacant hallways, up back stairwells, and across stretches of long, lonely highway. I have scrolled through endless pages, sending and receiving, caught in a web of searching. I've been tossed to and fro between gain and loss, love and hate, hope and despair. Now I return to the seemingly simplest thing, sitting upright, not moving a muscle, letting my breath breathe me. This goes against every urge, every impulse I have ever known, all my ploys, my desire to please you, to appear witty and charming, to convince you of my significance, to get one up on the world, are all for naught. Helpless, I drop the weighty load of me and sit bare naked before the great silence. Tender-hearted, I settle into the space between breaths where joy and sorrow meet. So perhaps you yourself have felt like you've gone down long hallways, up stairwells and through kitchens and, long, lonely highways. And then you come to this place. It can be done, of course, in your own home, in your own room, your own room of nourishment, your own sanctum, your own place where you go to. And it's there where we come to a very simple place of communion, or touching in with what's inside each of us each day, a little bit each day. And so I think after going on walkabout for me, in many ways, searching, seeking, I always return back to my own hearth, my own home. And this, I think, involves a kind of passion. Some of these passages that I would like to share with you and that are in this collection are certainly about having a kind of passion, because without it, I don't think we can really do this travel without this spark, without this inner flame. So maybe just, what we need to do, maybe that's it. It's just each day we have to kind of breathe on our own spark, breathe on our own ember, and let that flame rise up inside. So this next poem is called The Unforgettable Fire. And I think it is sometimes the case that we forget our own fire. I don't know what happens. We get distracted, we get lost, we get pulled out of ourselves. Maybe it's caring for other people, or trying to be good, or trying to get it right, or trying to be who we think we should be. And so really, when we connect to this ember, this inner ember that's, I think, always within us, we're born with this this inner spark, that when we can bring it to life and let it burn luminous and bright, that's when we feel most resourced and most connected. So anyhow, this poem is called The Unforgettable Fire. This longing dives deep in me. This longing dives deep in me, straight down to the seabed of my soul. Not a longing for name or riches, or the approval of others, but for the spirit whisperer, the silent, secret presence that rides on every breath, echoes with every thought, and resounds on every syllable. It is a primordial yearning, Neanderthal, like an ember from the first fire, still burning, as etches and songs and stencils of stars drawn in the night sky. It is a passion that must never be extinguished, but always stay with you, tucked like a brilliant bead in a leather pouch against your belly for safekeeping. Animate the light inside your dark. Animate the light inside your dark. Give breath to the spark within you. In the caverns of your bones, let the white flame rise upward, glistening bright. So maybe that longing dives deep within you. It takes, I don't know, just kind of takes time, takes space, takes kind of permission to connect to that longing. Maybe some never really are able to yoke to that longing. That could be unfortunate, because that longing, if it dives deep within you, as it does within me, and you're able to honor it, letting that spirit whisperer in you do his or her good work, I think that's where our practice becomes most fertile and has the most potency. So once you're able to kind of touch into that longing, touch into that space of connection, then it's about soaking inside. So many of you, of course, have studied with me before. I love the analogy of soaking or saturating. I think we all need time and space and an opportunity to do what I like to think of as soaking practices, where we can just be still long enough to to allow each of our fibers and cells and organs and glands and tissues to really become healed and become full in their own right, and to become resourced. So this passage is called Soaking Inside. You have to coax yourself to the edge, not of grit and vigor, but where you can feel a change come over you, like blue dye poured onto a white cloth. Let the sensation of serenity spread, filling every nook and cranny of your being, like making blood after a big meal, or a grassy dew soaked over a morning field. Stop all your striving and struggle. You need only soak into the ground substance of your being, synovial, gelatinous, like the flesh of an octopus, letting yourself taste the world through touch. With your brain in your skin, shape-shift your bones, be slithery, aqueous, and pliable. When you let go of who you are and who you think you should be, you become the color of the place you are in. So when you can let go of who you are or who you think you should be, you become the color of the place you are in. So this soaking, I think, just requires for each of us to slow down. As you know, we're of the slow school here at Prajna Yoga, the slow school of really permitting ourselves to be with, all things as they arrive. And this is not easy to do when we get caught in the whirlwind, the eddies and the vortexes of demand. And so through that flowing down, through being with each passing thing, is such an opportunity, of course, to remedy, to find a kind of inner remedy. And so this next verse is entitled simply "Be As You Are." Of course, the hardest thing of all really is to be as you are, and it's certainly taken me a good 60 years to kind of touch into the edge of what this may be. It's funny how we spend an entire lifetime trying to get somewhere. We struggle to get ahead in life, to make the grade, to get the big contract, to be liked on social media. A spiritual discipline is not immune to the mind that grasps. We try to get better at yoga, become more mindful, improve our meditation. Well, these are worthy goals. They are actually a big problem. More often than not, trying to better ourselves only blocks progress on the path. Again and again, we fail to realize that the goal is to simply be. Always busy and on demand, we are no longer a collective of human beings, but rather human doers. For this reason, you should never do yoga, but be yoga. What does it mean to just be? And how do we put it into practice? Follow the example of trees and clouds and crayfish. Follow the example of your four-legged friend waiting at the door to go out in the morning. Being is simple, straightforward. When a monk asks the heavyweight Zen master Joshu, what is the meaning of the first patriarch coming from the West? And then, in other words, what is the meaning of this entire practice? Joshu responds, the oak tree in the garden, the oak tree in the garden. It is hard to appreciate just being. Eternally restless and hankering for more, we distract ourselves with our phones, busy ourselves with our to-do lists, paying for more likes on Instagram, and strive to be good. Again and again, we keep busy while falling prey to the belief that we need to be other than we are. To be requires stripping away a kind of going bare bones. This is referred in Christian doctrine as a fasting of the heart. In yoga, of course, it's known as Satchit Ananda, the joy of simply being. Sadly, we feel that we're never enough. Sadly, we feel that we're never enough. We keep wanting more attention, more money, more hits, more followers, more self-knowledge, more peace. Can we cease our craving and realize we already have enough? Can we relish in just being? Tat tvam asi. You are being. Or put another way, be as you are. When we accept that to be is enough, then we need not go anywhere or get anything. When we have nothing more to gain and nothing more to lose, then finally, at last, we are content to be with what is. This kind of being as you are, being with what is, requires a kind of immediacy. Those of you who've studied with me before know that I really treasure this practice of immediacy, like being just right in that split second with what is arising. And not too long ago, I was sitting with one of my primary Dharma teachers. This is in the Tibetan practices of Vajrayana Buddhism, specifically Dzogchen. And I was up in Crestone, Colorado, sitting on retreat. And as usual, they offer the teachings. My teacher, Sokni Rinpoche, offered his teachings in a great tent. And it was a windy day. It was, up here in the high plains of the San Juan Valley. The wind was blowing against the top of the tent. And, amongst all this really in-depth and beautiful pointing out instructions in the Tibetan teachings. And if you have taken any teachings from a qualified Tibetan master, you know that there are just so many, instructions of how to work with the mind and how to note how your mind gets trapped and to note the ways in which we get stuck in cul-de-sacs of trying to see that which ultimately is formless and doesn't lend itself to the naked eye. So anyhow, we're sitting in the tent and the wind was blowing, and this is the poem that came through. It's called Tent Top. Flags on the tent top, flop, flip, flap, flip, flap. Oh, that's it. Flags on the tent top, flop, flip, flap, flip, flap. Oh. Another poem along those same lines, it's called Black Crow. And I think we can learn the Dharma from the trees, the clouds, the wind, from the spiders that weave their webs above our entryways in the morning. And so this passage is really about learning the Dharma from the crow. And it goes like this: Black crow atop the tall pine calls, caw, caw, caw. Going hoarse, caw, caw, caw. Listen to the Dharma. Listen to the Dharma. Listen to the Dharma. At some point, I think it's all about listening, coming back to the moment and listening. And this next poem is entitled This Very Moment. What we're looking for is not miles and miles down the road in the future waiting for us to arrive. Rather, it is the immediacy of this very moment, the split-second swoosh of the calligrapher's pen, the delighted shriek of the 6-month-old, the streak of lightning in the western sky. The true art of living is spontaneity, perfectly unplanned. Unfetter the shackles that constrain you. Untame your breath, that the gusty winds of prana lift you up like a raptor catching a thermal on high. There's no way of going back to the old trudge, quantifying every move, calculating every mile. You must forge on like a 17th century explorer into the wild frontier of this very moment. Always new, eternally fresh, never before arisen. Each day holds open the gate of the world for you. Each day holds open the gate of the world for you. You need only drop the burden of expectation from your shoulders and leave your luggage at the door. In this very moment, you are summoned to trust more, to widen the horizon of your heart, and ready yourself for the next big breath that may swoop in and lift you up on its back like the ancient wind horse bearing thunderbolts in the sky. Each day holds the gate of the world open for you. You need only drop the burden of expectation from your shoulders and leave your luggage at the door. So for me, that's a work in progress each day, kind of like, drop another part of my luggage off. Sometimes I pick it back up, put it back in my rucksack and, feeling like, how can I go on this day without it? Like, oh, I've been using that tool. I've been using that piece of clothing. I've been using that, identity for so long. How can I go forward without it? So much of my practice has been a kind of shedding really, day by day. And that's, a really work in progress. And of course, demands practice. So of all the passages that I've put together in this collection, in the space between, I think really it's about practice. And so each day, I'm always encouraging us to, each of you to get up, go to your mat, and do the practice. And this next piece is called Getting Out of Your Own Way, because I think that a teacher, of course, can never really teach this path. I think it's, for all of us, it's about finding the ways in which we are our own obstacle. And so, so here we go, getting out of your own way. On the long and winding journey on the path of practice, you may finally come to the place where you realize the best thing to do that you have to do is get out of your own way. At some point, you have to stop engineering your life and allow a force greater than yourself to enter. But how to get out of your own way? That's really the question. How to get out of your own way. Some people drink whiskey or rave dance all night. Some dive off of cliffs or go on shopping sprees. Yogis, of course, go to the space between breaths, between their right and left side, between their back and their front, the upper and outer, and sun and moon. They go between the identities, male and female, between the persuasions that pull them apart. There, the mind loses its grip and the anguished heart subsides. There you can hover like a dragonfly, weightless in concentration, clear of mind. There you are neither seeking nor finding, neither making progress nor losing ground. Thinking won't take you there. And by trying to make yourself better, you may only get in your own way further. So don't expect to gain anything or get rid of anything. You only have to enter the space between. slip through the gap between worlds and become part of the great unfolding. When your mind empties, an enormity rushes in on the ebbing tide, filling every nook and cranny of your being. When the flow of the great river of samadhi comes, you need only yield to its power and let it take you. So I think you're familiar with my style of teaching these days. So much of it is just encouraging, for me, encouraging myself and my students to just get out of your own way and to let breath move through you, let the blood move through you, let the flow of postures move through you. So that's a big project, a good 30-year project, isn't it? To stop engineering. And that may be difficult if you're good at engineering, if you're very good at measurements and weighing and putting things on scales and becoming very crafty at managing your life. And so, at some point, we just have to kind of allow and permit that something greater to come within. And that, of course, I think it always involves intimacy. So one of the real threads through all of my work, and certainly through this collection, is touching into a kind of intimacy, and this, I think, is suggested in this passage called "Where the Infinite and the Finite Meet." Where the infinite and the finite meet. As you walk through your day, connect to the immediate changing needs of the moment, and at the same time yoke to the great source all around. If your life is anything like mine, your days are filled to the brim, sending and receiving, getting your 9-year-old on the bus for school, or taking care of an aging parent, making your tahini toast in the morning. Life is always a bustling storm of activity, don't you find? Take each thing as it comes and learn to grow old. Do not reject the world or cling to it. Sometimes we push the world away thinking, oh, this is not right. This is not good enough. This doesn't belong here. At other times, we hold on for dear life, clinging to people, places, and ideas. 50% of practice is just bearing witness to the sometimes turbulent, sometimes serene ways of the world. When we forget the great source, the unlimited, omnipresent mother of all things, we get thrown into a tizzy. You must know this tizzy asana, where you spin like a top, wobble around, and everything goes out of kilter. Can you stay connected to the great source while meeting full-heartedly the moment at hand? Can you be of the earth, immanent, time-bound, and limited, and at the same time be of the sky, formless, unlimited, and transcendent? The challenge then, now, as always, is to do a kind of double move, like the two-step dance, where you engage and let go at the same time. Don't hold too tight or too loose. If you hold too tightly, you will squeeze the moment. If your hold is too lax, you'll never make the connection. This practice is full of paradox, isn't it? Where you are both child and elder, matter and spirit, the wise one and the fool. Allow the timeless to move through you while dealing with each passing thing. In the shuffle of your daily round, know the eternal to be right at hand, intimate, nearer to you than your ideas, your thoughts, or opinions. Let your practice guide you smack dab into the middle of the moment where the infinite and the finite meet. Let your practice guide you smack dab into the middle of the moment where the infinite and the finite meet. Mm. Yeah, really beautiful. So happy to share some of these passages with you, and like always, some verses or some images, I kind of tuck them in my shirt pocket and I carry them around town with me, and I come back to them again and again. And of course, I've been inspired by, the great poets of lore, whether it's William Wordsworth or Emily Dickinson or Mary Oliver or Kabir. And I'm sure you have too. And so for me, in crafting my own verse was a way of like allowing the images that came to me in my own practice time and my own meditations to just allow them to, like a thread off of a spool, to allow them to kind of weave themselves. And I do love reading other poets' work in classes, and maybe you've done that too. But then I kind of came to a point in my own work where I feel like, well, I just like need to put some of these ideas down on paper, so then I can share them with others. And that this, of course, is really what this project is about. So just last couple of here today, coming back to my own personal odyssey. This poem is called Unthawing, and I've had to work a lot with the ways in which my own tissues, connective tissues, and memories go into a kind of freeze response. Of course, you're maybe familiar with fight, flight, freeze, or collapse, and for me, it's very easy to kind of go into that sort of semi, frozen state where I just, for whatever reason, get caught and trapped in old memories or old shames or old um, uh, inflammation, feelings of inflammation. And so this poem was about kind of coming out of a frozen state, and it's simply called Unthawing. In sitting today, an icy grief condenses in my chest, weighty and gray. White bubbles of trapped air suspend in my lungs like insects frozen in amber. I am swallowed whole by an ancient ache, dense and thick, one that constricts and expands outward at the same time. Under pressure, my heart suddenly cracks, a kind of thwacking split that resounds for miles, like the woodland pond in springtime, unthawing its solid mass of ice. And my heart bleeds droplets of liquid gold. Maybe your own heart sometimes feels icy in grief. You feel kind of condensation in your chest, weighty and gray, and bubbles of trapped air kind of like feel like they're stuck inside, like insects frozen in amber. And then under pressure, at least for me, under pressure, there's a sudden kind of break sometimes, a kind of sudden split, a resounding thwack, that can resound for miles. It can just kind of stay with you. If your heart breaks open, and the tears flow and your, anahata, your heart and your lung, starts to really open up to something else. And so from that split, that's where the amrita, those little droplets, that's what I was thinking when I wrote this poem. My heart bleeds droplets of liquid gold. Those droplets are celebrated by the yogis, the bindu, the droplet. And those nectarine droplets, they're beautiful. And they're those droplets that allow us to keep opening, to keep growing, and to keep changing. And they're not easy to come by. certainly for me, in my own journey, not easy to come to. But sometimes it's just those moments of intimate presence, that moments of intimate presence that provide those thwacking splits. So the last passage I wanted to share with you along the lines of intimacy is called The Call of Solitude. And I do think that solitude is, our best friend. I don't know for you whether you've discovered that in your life. Not everybody does, and maybe not everyone, solitude becomes their best friend. I don't know. People can find solace in all kinds of things. Music, of course, and big trees, and four-legged friends, and your significant loves in your life can all provide that. But solitude, there's a kind of flavor to solitude, hard to put into words, of course, that flavor, but solitude has a kind of potency that is unlike any other. So anyhow, this passage is called The Call of Solitude. There is nothing as treasured as a dear friend, someone to be with in idle moments, walking the paths, sharing warbling thoughts, drinking tea. This friend is a confidant, one in whom you can place your trust, convey your love, and know as a spiritual friend. In Sanskrit, this cherished one is called the Suhrid. Suhrid, meaning good heart. The one who brings you out of yourself, the one who teaches you how to belong. Yet this friend will never show his or her face or reveal her name exactly, being not of this world. Only when you are cocooned in solitude, raw within yourself, unguarded and approachable, may the intimate one be revealed, and only then ghostly like mist. In the smallest hour, permit a swell of silence to wash over you. In the smallest hour, permit a swell of silence to wash over you. Free from the clack and drone of daily doings, you may encounter this friend. Search for her, search for her. Sweep your body like a metal detector over hallowed ground. There will come a moment, there may come this moment, when the vibration quickens, your breath heaves, and a current of electricity flows through you. This is the time when the treasure of the friend is revealed. With great affection, condense all time and space down to the union between you and yours. Swaddled in togetherness, you are beloved. There, let your heart tremble in joy unimaginable. On this great ground of solitude, you are changed in the moment final, never lost, nor alone, intimate, never to be divided. Stand in the merciful good and make a silent pact never to leave. So that's my wish for you going forward, and we're all sentient beings to really find that beloved inside and yoke to that solitude. And may you feel the call, this collection of passages, I think more than anything else, is to inspire people to listen to their own inner call, pick up the cue, pick up the hum, pick up the, that little voice inside, and listen, and trust. And then from there, of course, is where we feel the greatest riches, So really, I'm so happy you could join here today for this little offering from my collection in the space between. Really so thrilled to have it available, and many kind thanks, of course, to Patricia Cousins, who's with us today, for her fine graphic work, where she is based on the beautiful coast of Maine, and then of course for Christina and my son, who took the front photograph of the front cover. So Ina gets credit for the photography. So anyhow, so pleased to share with you, and may these little droplets of inspiration stay with you through your day and days ahead. So thanks so much for joining in, and we look forward to having a chance to come together in person or virtually this way. And again, as Christina mentioned, if you would like, I'm happy to sign a copy for you, and we'll send one out if we don't get to be in the same space this next 6 months ahead. Okay, yeah, all right, good everyone. So enjoy. Thank you so much for coming. Bye now. Bye bye.